I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. Let me know how this sounds in the chat. Let me know if everything sounds okay. I am recording from my office. I normally do my home studio, but I saw Melody Farris's sentencing, and this was wow. There are some allegations that came up during her sentencing. Sarah Boone's sentencing was mind-blowing. It was the worst, like, it was so bad, and then I watched this on Recovery Addict Stream this morning, and we had to talk about it. Thank you for letting me know that the sound sounds good. I will do a overview of the case. Welcome, Lisa. This is a very, very sad case because Melody Farris was charged and convicted of the capital M of her husband. At the time, her husband, he was a prominent lawyer in Georgia. He was really taking care of a lot of different family members. There is an adult son that lived on their property, and Melody is going to blame that son for her husband's death that she was convicted of. So in her statement to the judge, in her statement to the court, she is going to blame her son. Specifically, she's going to name him. Now, we do need to go back in this case. So just for a brief overview, this case is let me see. I think I just wanted to play a little bit. Let me see. Um, and I have this video linked down in the description. This was an older video that I played. I talked about some of the family dynamics in this case because all four of Melody's children testified. Three of the children were called by the state, and one child was called by the defense. In this video, I also covered a interview with one of the jurors. So the jury deliberated for 3 days, and on day 2, they let the judge know that they were stuck. And, I think that was on a Friday. The jury went home over the weekend, and on Monday, they convicted her on all charges. And in this video, I covered that jury interview. So this was the juror that went on court TV to talk about her experience, and she's gonna say that the jury first started with, did they think somebody else did it? Like, that was the first place the jury started. That was my if I'm remembering this correctly, if I'm remembering this interview correctly, I'm almost positive that's where the jury started, and the jury ended up determining, nope, like, that they ruled out Scott because Melody is going to blame her son, Scott. So how did we get here? This is Melody Farris was convicted of, let me see, I have, um, she was charged with murder, right, with malice, felony murder, aggravated assault, concealing the death of another, and making a false statement. We are going to listen to what the judge tells her as well. Um, so Gary Farris was found in a burn pit on their property in 2018. And we are going to go back because so Melody was married and she also had a lover at the time. It sounds like they had like Gary and Melody, they were married, but it sounds like they saw other people. And Rusty, uh, he gave some inconsistent statements to the police. And so let's listen to this part because the jury thought this was important.
Break to get you to get more information that you did not originally.
Sorry, that's loud on my end. I'm sorry if that came in a little hot on y'all's end. That was That was loud on my end.
Give. You told them that the defendant, probably the last minute of the last conversation, she said, Gary is in the burn pile. No, she said, he is in the burn pile. And I said, what? And she said, he's in the burn pile. And I said, do not say another word and do not tell me anything. I do not need to know. Those were your words to law enforcement in July the 24th of 2018. Is that true?
Yes.
And then afterwards, you said that is it.
And if I'm understanding the timeline correctly, I believe he's saying that Melody said this to him before Gary was recovered. So Gary was missing at first. At first, Gary was missing, and they didn't know where he was. And it's my understanding that he initially said, before he talked to his lawyer, before he kind of realized, I don't know, that this was his first statement to police.
Everything, period, correct?
I think his lawyer might be there. Y'all can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. I think he might be conferring with his lawyer.
Yes.
And you also told law enforcement, did you not, that if I'm going to give an ounce, I'm going to give a pound, right?
I don't recall that.
Would you dispute it?
No, I would not.
And you made it clear several times after telling them that she told you Gary was in the burn pile, that that's everything she said and that's what happened, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that she made the statement to you that you said she said on July 4th, about 2 o'clock in the morning, Gary had not been reported missing yet. Isn't that true?
Yes.
Now, in July, when you gave this statement to law enforcement, you did mention something about taking some Advil PM or Tylenol PM. Do you remember saying that?
I do.
But you never said about being afraid or terrified that you couldn't, because you were so scared from what was going on that you couldn't say what happened. Isn't that true?
I don't know what you're at. I don't know what you're saying.
In July 2018, July 24th of 2018, when you told law
During this
enforcement,
conversation?
Yes.
Yes.
you never mentioned I'm scared and I need to, that wasn't right what I just said. You never said I was scared, did you?
Not to law enforcement.
You never told them you were scared, did you?
Not to law enforcement.
There's not going to be a recording of you saying I was scared and that's why I said what I said.
True.
And that night,
All right. So I'm going to fast forward. I think it was about here. Because this is what one of the jurors said was really telling to them. They played phone calls between Melody and Rusty. And this was one of the things that was really important to the jury. And on one of the phone calls, because the daughter that testified for Melody, Amanda, Melody talks about the fact that Amanda's really upset and that Rusty needed to clarify things with Amanda and answer her questions, because Rusty is 100% supporting Melody. Like, that's based on his testimony. In my opinion, that's what he
Went back into Bobby's office and Bobby was trying to talk me off the ledge. I was flipping out. And he was not expecting me to say that.
Let me know if the audio went out. Welcome, therapist, therapy. Yeah. I saw you on a different live last night. Let me know if the audio is okay. Sometimes it goes out, and so hopefully things are good.
When I came back in.
but you were with your attorney, right?
Yes,
And you were paying your attorney, correct?
I was.
And you had 30 minutes or more to sit there and discuss what you're about to go do, right?
That whole 30 minutes was not what I was about to do. It was what I was just talking, I was so distraught that I wasn't even making sense. And he was trying to get me to calm down.
And you would agree with me that you then went back out, knowing law enforcement was trying to get more information from you about what y'all talked about on the phone that night of the 4th, and then you said he's in the burn pile.
That's correct.
And you agree with me that the defendant in this jail call was very concerned with you talking, right?
Yes.
And the words she used were single-handedly hang me.
Yes.
That's not what an innocent person says, is it?
That I don't know. Who? What she said or what I said?
What she said.
Well, I guess if you were locked up and somebody had said something against you, you'd probably say that too.
Because
But what if what they said was true? And so the jury, so this goes on. I do have a link to the rest of this down in the description. As I mentioned, this was something that the jury thought was significant. Ooh. And his stepmother was the one that came forward to talk about having a missing weapon that they believe might have been the weapon. Like it's from the prosecution side, it sounds like they think that that was the weapon that was used. All right. Let's go on ahead and okay. So let's go on ahead and start from here. This is Melody's sentencing.
All right, go ahead. No, just swear, man.
You swear to affirm the testimony that people will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, put your hand down. Can you judge this for record purposes? Can you say your name?
David Thomas.
Okay, and have you prepared a statement to read to the court for purposes of sentencing?
I have.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
So do you mean during the trial? Sheba, are you asking during the trial if Rusty's hearing loss is a hindrance? So I don't know what aids he uses. So I don't know enough about Rusty's situation to be able to answer that. Yeah, I don't know enough about him.
Your Honor, may I address the court and say a few things to you and the family?
All right.
First, I'd like to address the Farris family. I want each and every one of you to know how sorry I am for the loss of your dad, your brother, and Melody.
And I think this is correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. I believe this is a family friend that's giving a statement on behalf of Melody. So this statement is being given on behalf of Melody. The other statements, I think they played a recording of one of the grandchildren. None of the other children gave public statements during sentencing.
For your husband, Gary.
Okay, go.
I understand what it's like to lose both parents. I buried both of mine in the pouring down rain in 29-degree weather on a Christmas Eve not too long ago. So I understand all the questions about death and why. Yours is even more complicated as to who and why. You are all in my prayers and in my thoughts as these years have gone by. No amount of money can ever replace a parent, a spouse, or brother, and no amount of money is ever worth anybody's life. Second, Melody, I am your friend. And I will stand up for you today because in the 8 months, 6 years ago that I came to know you, I witnessed what a true friend could be to another friend of ours who was fighting for his life, as he still is today. I saw what your heart was made of in spite of your own circumstances and problems, and that you wanted to help, not to hurt, but to help. I saw the kindness you showed myself along with other people around you. I know your story always remained the same, and it never changed. And in my heart of hearts, I believe in your innocence. For I would not be here today, along with our friend in spirit, Alan, who is fighting a horrible disease called cancer as we speak. Third, Your Honor, this is my friend Melody. Melody Walker Farris, whom I come before you today on her behalf as a friend to ask you for mercy. I ask you for grace. I ask you for leniency upon your decision of her sentencing. Gary's death was a horrible tragedy, and there is no excuse for murder on any level. But to convict someone and sentence them for life is even more of a tragedy in itself. especially if it is the wrong person, and especially if all of the evidence was not able to be presented to the jury as a complete investigation should have been brought forth. There were a lot of holes in this case and a lot of unanswered questions. I don't know who's responsible for Gary's death. I know the jury did the best they could with the information that they had to work with, Your Honor. But there were doubts, and there still are for many of us in this case today. I don't know who will have to live with that burden for the rest of their lives, but in coming to know Melody, I cannot believe she is the one responsible for her husband's death. And if
Judge, I'm going to object. He cannot impeach the verdict. That's improper statement. We can talk about it affects him and the family, but he cannot impeach the verdict.
I'm gonna let him go ahead.
if I gave you a roadmap and tore it in half and expected you to reach a decision in this case without all of the information, that would not be fair to anyone, including Gary, if the wrong person was convicted. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Anyone got any questions? All right.
Yeah, we just have one more. If the court will recall, there was a gentleman that sat behind us very soon, tired of the trial. That's Mr. Alan Wilson. He's suffering from cancer, as Ron was referring to. He's unable to be here due to the sickness.
Okay.
So he's very sick.
All right. Go.
And so just so it's my understanding, so I think this is Chris. And then Scott is the other. So they're gonna show throughout her statement, they're gonna show Chris and they're gonna show Scott. And we're gonna talk because there are gonna be some reactions to some of her statements from the family. And I want to talk about it a little bit. All right.
All right. All right. Go ahead.
Judge, take a second, 'cause I gotta zoom in. So, Mr. Alan Wilson writes, I've been Melody Walker Farris's friend for the past 30 years. I helped to build her and Gary's house at Hampton Hall, and that's where our friendship began. I have watched her children grow up over the years and become adults. Melody has always been an incredible friend to me. Melody always went the extra mile to make sure that I was okay in my life, even at times when things were not good in hers. I appreciate her more than you know, especially 6 years ago when I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. It took everything she had to help my friend Dave throw a surprise Christmas gathering for me, but she did, even when her world was falling apart. We have done things over the years like dinner, social events, to just plain hanging out, as Melody would give you the shirt off her back. She always loved her children, no matter what. She loved Gary from the beginning and stuck with him over the years, stating,
Because the defense kind of tried to blame Chris as well, because Chris's ex-wife was pulled into all of this because she saw a gun in the home right a few, I don't know, around the time of this incident, and she became very emotional because she did not want to be involved in any of this at all. Like this is difficult. And when the defense was cross-examining her, because she was called by the prosecution to talk about seeing that pew pew in the house. And she became very emotional, I thought. But she did because she was directly asked if she thought Chris would do this for the money, and she said no. So the defense tried to point the finger at Chris and Scott, I thought, from watching the trial.
stating trying to raise their 4 children as a mother should. She was there for Gary when he was sick. She was there for her children when they needed her, and next one. And she was there for all of us. So I believe we just will have some argument as a sentence, but Ms. Farris wanted to address the court whenever it's appropriate.
I'll generally let her go last, so long as she doesn't talk about the facts of the case. So y'all can go ahead and present. All right, go ahead.
Judges, next argument, we've already addressed the murder issue. We agree with that. Aggravated assault should merge into malice murder count based on the way that the indictment reads. So the court will only be sentencing on count 1, count 4, as well as count 5. The court knows you can sentence her to a minimum of life as to count 1, or a maximum of life without the possibility of parole. The court can also run consecutive to either one of those sentences, a maximum of 15 years. We will be asking the court to ask to count 1, sentence Ms. Farris to life with the possibility of parole. Ask to count 4, 10 years concurrent, and ask to count 5, 5 years concurrent, both to count 1. Looking at the Department of Corrections inmate population,
So they're just going to talk about how many individuals are her age are currently incarcerated, and they're going to ask, because I think for the charge they have to do life, but it's the option of with the possibility of parole or without. I want to skip ahead to her statement. All right. Let me see if I'm at the right place.
A forgiving man and a beloved.
No. Hold on. Okay, so let's start from here.
She successfully divided her family, isolating Amanda.
Oh. Okay, so that's still the prosecution giving their statement. Let me see. Okay, and then that's when she starts hers. So we're just going to play from here.
And it's all for her own selfish motive. All of this. The motive evidence in this case was overwhelming. Blaming her own sons for a murder she committed is unthinkable as a mom and just as human. This sentence should not reflect the defendant where she is in life because she chose to commit this crime at that time. She chose to commit this crime 6 months after Olivia was born. But it should reflect the life that was lost and the way it was lost, the manner in which it was lost. At her hands, with her depraved heart in mind. Gary was a brilliant lawyer, a forgiving man, and a beloved father and grandfather. The sentence should reflect what his family and what the world has lost. And that deserves a sentence of imprisonment of life without the possibility of parole. Thank you, Judge.
So my bad. Yeah. So
All
that's
right,
what the
Ms. Harris,
state
you have a
says.
statement?
I do. I've written this so that I could get to the word.
Okay.
On July the 5th, 2018, 6 years, 5 months ago today, began the worst nightmare that I could have ever imagined. Not only my world, but my family's world was absolutely destroyed at the hands of one person. I've had 6+ years of being told not to talk. Don't say that. Take legal advice.
So this is Scott, and I think Scott is preparing himself that she is 100% about to blame it all on him. But in this moment, and the judge, I don't know that the judge, I think the judge went in with an idea of what sentence they were going to give because the judge didn't sentence more harshly, or I don't know, like yeah, we'll watch the judge's sentence, but she is about to blame Scott. And in my opinion, if you've been convicted of a crime, this is not the time to talk about who you think did it and the evidence that you disagree with. I don't think this is the time for that. That's how I feel.
Walk out of this courtroom today and drop over dead. I want to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, and Gary's family, and to be honest, at this point in time, the entire world who has viewed this, I have waited for years to make this statement to everyone. I want the world to know who did this. I have always heard that the courtroom is the last place you're going to get the truth. And has that ever been proven to be the truth in this case?
And I've never heard that the courtroom is the last place where you're going to get the truth. Like I've never heard anyone say that. And it sounds like her defense team recommended that she not take the stand because she would have had to be cross-examined, and the prosecution could have asked her about the statements or the phone calls. Like the prosecution could have asked her all of those questions in front of the jury. And the prosecution is going to have a chance to cross-examine, and they're not really going to ask her any questions. They aren't going to use this as an opportunity to cross-examine anything that she's going to say during this. Once again, I don't think this is the time for this.
Not only did I not do this, I know you did. I know Scott killed his father. He took my husband.
And so Chris just said, "Are you serious?" Like that's yeah. So this is Chris.
The father of Chris, Emily, and Amanda. He took Big Daddy from my grandchildren, Ella, Addison, Olivia, Jax, and James. 3 of them who never got to know Gary. Scott, this is unforgivable.
So please remember, this is Chris, because the camera is not on Scott right now. Because at times Chris is going to, I think, smirk, but I think this is so mind blowing and just like because I don't think Chris believes a word of this.
Scott, I have spent an entire life of loving and protecting you. But this, I refuse to cover for you. My mother, your mom.
And so I missed that when I watched it the first time, that Chris wanted this statement to stop, because this isn't, and just my thoughts. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a psychologist. This is not the appropriate thing to be saying at your sentencing for the crime that you've been convicted of.
Begged me to take the blame for this. She said after she talked to you, after Gary died, that she knew you had done it. Her exact words were, "You are his mother. You have to take blame for this." And I told her no, that I couldn't. I still have 3 other children, grandchildren, and this is not a stolen credit card, a check, or a diamond ring that you've pawned, all of which you have done. I saw you coming from that burn pile the morning of July the 5th in your truck.
So that's where, because so she's going to try to put off the image that she attempted to protect him, that now she can no longer protect him now that she's been convicted and she's facing life in jail. Like that's what she's going to say, but that's not how it comes off to me. And I know there are people in the chat that feel that she's innocent. As long as you make your statements respectfully, and for anybody that doesn't, I don't believe in going back and forth and arguing. Like, some people are going to think different, but for me, I don't think this is appropriate to do now. And the impact that this has, to me, she is isolating her other children even more. If this was, like, to me, any possibility of connections, because her children that believe that she did this, they might decide to not let the grandchildren have contact, to not, like, they might decide to, they call it, there's a difference between alienation and estrangement. They might decide to cut her off completely if they haven't already.
You told me that you were checking on the fire to make sure that it wasn't going to get the woods on fire. You told me it was okay. I asked you a few weeks later why you were at that burn pile in your truck. And you told me that your dad had told you to clean up the extra wood that was by the barn. I told Hayes that I had seen Scott that morning coming from the burn pile. So Hayes, where is that recording? I want to know. You told me there was multiple recorders. You did, but you sat here in this courtroom and you told this court that you didn't tell anybody about recorders, but you did. Where is that?
And so right now, like, Scott is mad because like this is like, he's being blamed. Like, she's been convicted and she's taking this time to blame him. And the prosecution is going to say that the things that she's saying does not match the evidence.
Recording in the interview. You, Scott, immediately started saying that there was a gun missing, a gun that nobody knew about. You never mentioned before. I asked you more days than not where your dad was. And this was the first time you ever had that response. There's a gun missing. You should have you did start immediately spinning your story. When you found out that Addison and Cameron were there the night before, you got so angry. Now I know why. When I went to feed the baby goat the morning.
Your Honor, I'm not judging this point. It's all about facts of the case. You, in fact, her statement needs to not be about facts.
Right. Well, Ms. Farris, really not supposed to go into the evidence of this phase of the case. And what I typically do is, if the defendant wants to go into the facts of the case, I'm going to allow the state to cross-examine or ask questions, which I don't really anticipate you want to do.
I would just ask to close, Judge.
Your statements needs to be constrained to the punishment, and if there's things you want to talk about in relation to that and how I should sentence you, I don't have a problem if you want to continue to profess your innocence, but we're not going to go on for a significant period of time. You resuscitate your view of the case and your opinion as to what the evidence is without your prior testimony and without the state being able to cross-examine it. It's not proper. So I'm going to ask you to restrain your remarks to comply with those directions.
And she is not going to comply with those directions. I want to compare this to the sentencing of Ashley Benefield when Doug Benefield's family was said, hey, you can't go into that. You need to stop. And they apologized and they immediately conformed with what the judge with what the judge asked. I think each judge rules different, and I didn't get any indication that there were any issues with this judge. But to me, her not conforming with that judge's request, like, to me, she's going to say exactly what she came here to say. Unless she is cut off and said that she can't say anything else, she is going to read the rest of this. We're going to listen to it.
Judge, this needs to be known.
Well,
I'll just ask to respond, Judge.
all right, go ahead.
So she said, I need to say this, and the state said, I'll just make a response, and she's going to be allowed to say the rest. I think there might be another objection. Let's see.
I went to feed the baby goat the morning of July the 5th before I left for the lake. I saw where you had washed out the barn. I later found that several bottles of house wash were missing after this all happened several weeks ago. Now I know why. The photos of your bathroom spotlessly clean. Now I know why. I know why you demanded me to move the tractor that you so were upset about it being in the place. Now I know why.
So, but that's where I'm wondering, is she saying that because a lot of people were saying, how did she move a 300-pound person? Like, did she use the tractor to move? So I was listening to this, wondering if she was giving some of the details of how things happened. Like, this was odd to me. This was very, very strange.
Scott, you called me on July the 4th and asked me what my plans were for the day. And I told you I was going to the lake with Amanda, and you were so glad that I was going. I thought it odd then. Now I know why. I found copies of my birth certificate, your dad's birth certificate, our marriage license in your truck. Now I know why.
Somebody asked if her lawyers knew what she was going to say ahead of time. So the defendant has the right to say whatever they want to say, and the lawyer is just going to advise them. Sarah Boone allowed, so I don't know what James Owen cut out of Sarah's statement, because what she said was horrific. So whatever, because so James Owens, Sarah Boone's attorney, went through and edited out things and was like, you can't say this. Sarah, you need to show some effing remorse. Like James Owens went through it, and they agree. And so she said what she said, but she wanted to say more. And she listened to her attorney, and she got up, she let us all know that this was edited and it doesn't have everything she wanted to say. But to me, I don't think this is the time or place to do any of this.
Scott, I saw Gary going to that barn the night of July the 3rd, right after you got home. And then Scott is going, and I thought then Scott's going to be in trouble for staying at the lake and playing golf all the time. Never in a million years did I ever think that this nightmare was starting then. I told you, Detective Hayes, that I saw Scott going over there to the barn. Where is that in the recording? A bag. I know exactly where and when I was standing. Scott, you put antifreeze under my kitchen sink to set me up for this. The only you would have known where it was, because it was for the Mercedes. When Amanda and I were putting that house.
So, but that's where I'm wondering if she's blaming him for the mistakes she made. Like, so when we talk about Sarah Boone and any of her injuries or any of those things, I think Sarah Boone was the type of person that if she fell and injured herself, that she would blame George. Like, and so this is difficult. This was very, very difficult to listen to.
Back together, you sat in there and watched us like a hawk. Now I know why.
I don't know.
You became so angry when the fire investigator came in July, weeks after this nightmare started. Now I know why you were so angry. Scott, you failed your polygraph test. You recorded meetings at the attorney's office and turned them over to the DA's office. We hired Manny to help us. Emily is the one who used.
And so I think the family is trying to console, like, so there are family members trying to help the family listening to this. They're trying to help them all stay, because if they get too upset, they can be asked to leave. Because there has to be a certain level of decorum. It's my understanding that during Sarah Boone's statement, that some of George Torres's family got up and like they couldn't stay and hear her smear campaign of George. And this is very, very
Used for
hard.
daddy's credit card to pay for that attorney. Scott, you got so angry that your sister Amanda was getting my personal clothes and my personal things to the point that Cherokee County had to be called. That is not the actions of the same person. Scott's anger issues have all been a huge issue. When he was in kindergarten and elementary school, Chris would.
I'm objecting. At this point, she's dragging Scott for the month and his character. This is not.
All right, Ms. Farris, I'm going to cut you off if you keep just wanting to resuscitate facts that aren't before the court. And Ms. Frankish, I'll give you a chance to respond to the extent that you want to and give you closing statement.
I am the mother that was always there for my children, even though they had done things that were wrong. Chris, who took care of your girls and loved them if they were my own, who came and got them off the street when you were acting an absolute fool because they were scared to death, who drove down to Buckhead and got your children.
Now, I'll tell you, okay, so just to kind of give you some direction. Things that are appropriate,
Judges.
you helping take care of your family, raise your family, those kind of things, what you've done throughout your life, and asking the court to exert some sort of mercy on you, things of that nature are appropriate. So you can talk about those kind of things, but let's don't go into the individual facts or things that haven't been previously presented to the court. Okay? All right, go ahead.
I love Ella and Addison more than life itself. And it was their life for mine. It would be mine in a heartbeat. Emily, who helped you move to and from an apartment and a house in 19-degree weather, even though I knew that you were trying to keep it from me. I was always there for you. I came back to you in Thompson Station after your husband was arrested.
So this comes off like a list of all the things, like, to me, when she's talking to Emily this way, it's almost like saying that Emily's ungrateful. Like, how could you do this to me? How, like, that's how it comes off to me. This doesn't sound like to the judge saying, these are all of my positive acts. This is what I mean to my family. Please, give me an opportunity to, I don't know, like this does not come off well to me.
To care for you and Olivia. I am so sorry that your children will never know their big daddy. Amanda and Chad, words cannot express my gratitude for everything that you've done for me. Thank you so very much. And I was fortunate enough to get to care for Jen.
So Amanda was the daughter that testified on her behalf. The other 3 children testified for the prosecution.
James every day since he was 3 weeks old. He is my pride and joy. Love for that little boy is unbelievable. I spent 18 plus months in the Cherokee County Jail over something that I did not do. The last thing, I thought that was the last thing I could do to Gary, for him, to get justice for him. I can remember thinking, it's okay that I sit here. I just want answers. That's all I want. And I still haven't got them. And I don't think that I ever will. And that scares me to death. Amanda was the only one of my children that got up here and told the truth. And I thank her for that every day. Judge Cannon, I had so many questions, so many whys. Why were so many things not their task? Why was the barn never checked? I think that would have given us so many answers. Why did they run out of Blue Star? They were on my property for days. I beg of you to get answers. Judge Cannon, I'm begging for justice for Gary, for my children, for my grandchildren, for Gary's family. And I am begging that you throw out this verdict. Be the 13th juror. Help.
But it almost sounded like she thought the judge could have Scott arrested and taken away. Like that's how. And Lisa, thank you for reminding me that Lori Shaver did the same thing, but she was that was because she blamed her minor child for the thing. And she also blamed the ex. Yeah, Lori Shaver. Jesse Kershkeski, yeah, she did it too. Sarah said that, I don't know, she tried to make it sound like we needed her forgiveness. It was a very, very odd statement. It was very odd. But this is odd too for me.
Us get justice. I did not do this. I promise you on my life. The 18 months that I did in Cherokee County was nothing compared to the last month that I spent in there. Now I know that Cherokee County did not do the job in the investigation. They took Scott's story and ran with it. I know that in my heart, body, and soul, who did this, and I'm begging for help. I'm begging you, Judge Gannon. Please do not send me to prison for something I didn't do. I did not do this. If I had done this, I would take this charge gladly. If it would bring Gary back, I would gladly go to prison. I do not want to wait years for an appeal. I've waited 6 years and 5 months for justice already, but here we are. Maybe I should have testified, but I listened to legal counsel. I wanted the truth out there, and this is why I am making.
And so I don't know if, and I forget if she was asked if she was happy with her counsel, because that's normally a question that the defendant is asked at the end of their trial. She might say ineffective assist. I don't know, but like, because she's definitely going to appeal. I don't know if she'll get a new trial. This case was wild because the fact that Martha Jane came in and testified after watching and realizing that she had a missing weapon. So there might be grounds for an appeal. I don't know. But wow.
In the statement, I will talk to any and everyone who can help me and my family. I never wanted my family's life to be played out for the world to see. It is a mother's job to protect her children, and I cannot protect the person who did this.
Scott was cleared, and the prosecution is going to say it, but
we can't replace Gary. That is unforgivable. I promise you to work hand in hand with the DA's office. But what scares me the most is that because of several individuals, so many others in this county that did not do their job, justice will never be done. For the last 6 years and 5 months, my every thought has been consumed with this. No matter what I do, it never leaves. And until you have lived this, nobody can understand. And I would not wish this on anybody. When I heard of the mother of the boy at the Appalachia school shooting, she called to tell that her own son was going to the school with a gun. My heart broke for her. This is a mother.
That was like an odd thing to come in to. I don't know if she's housed with that particular mother, because that mother was arrested later, but it was for something separate. It wasn't for that incident. But like that was just an odd thing to come in.
Worse like me. Judge Cannon, I'm begging you for help. As one parent to another, help me get justice for Gary and my family. A mother, or at least not this mother, does not blame her child unless she knows he did it. Not thinks, knows. And I would never sit here and let the attorneys lay blame to him if I didn't know. You have no idea how heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching this is. John Luke says that I'm the most stoic person he's ever met. My response was, you never know how strong you are until that's your only choice. So before it said that the only reason I'm telling you this is because I got a guilty verdict. It's not. If it had come back as not guilty, I would have still been begging for justice, for help getting the right person convicted. As soon as I walked out of the courtroom, I promise you I would have done that. Chris, Emily, Amanda, Ella, Addison, Olivia, Jack, and James, I'm doing this for you. Gary is gone, and trust me. When I say that he is in a better place, because this has been the worst nightmare. It's been hell on earth. Knowing that your own son did this. And it's only been by the grace of God that I have survived this last 6 years and 5 months. If I could, I would gladly trade places with Gary. Judge Cannon, I am begging you for help. Please do this for Gary in my family. I have missed years with the people that I love dearly. Help me restore my family. Be the person in Cherokee County that is their task.
And I think she wasn't. I think she wasn't. I don't think she liked the fact that Chris testified for the prosecution because she said Amanda's the only one that told the truth. I think some of the people she listed were grandchildren. I think that's who some of the people that she listed. I could be wrong. Amanda's definitely the one that she's the closest to. You can tell.
I do not want years. I do not want to wait years for justice, years that I may not have. I know this is something that you may never have seen before. And I plead with you to roll this verdict out. Help me get justice for the correct person. As bad as it sounds, I want to be there to watch him chained and shackled and brought to justice. I plead with you.
It's not going to happen.
This is something I will never recover from. I don't know that my family will ever recover from. Please help me. I'm begging you to restore my faith in the judicial system. I'm begging you, not for me, but for Gary and my children and my grandchildren.
All right, Ms. Frankish, you want to respond to anything?
Very briefly, Judge. When the attorneys had the opportunity to get jurors, Your Honor was, I believe, present for that. For Scott's sake, they ruled him out in the very beginning of deliberations. Statement, I ask that you take note of his inconsistencies with the evidence, respect the jury's verdict, which I know you do, but that the verdict is spoken. And we ask, in addition to what we previously asked, Judge, as a condition that she never profit from this story, from this crime, I just ask that you include that into the sentence.
All right.
No. So this was earlier today. This was about maybe like 10 a.m. earlier. So this was from earlier today. I was in the chat. I was supposed to have an 11 o'clock, but so I ended up eating lunch, and I scheduled to go over it. And I wanted to research a little bit more to go back to the juror interview because the jury said they ruled Scott out. Because the defense asked Scott questions about his whereabouts, his financial difficulties, his this. To me, the defense asked Scott and Chris and pointed the finger a lot of different directions, and the jury did not. Ultimately, the jury convicted her. That's where we are. Now we're going to listen to the judge.
All right, as we've indicated, jury have returned a verdict guilty to all counts.
Yep.
Count 1, the malice murder, being the primary charge. Count 2 would be vacated as a matter of law based upon the conviction in count 1. Count 3, aggravated assault, would merge into the malice murder. I don't, without going into a lot of detail or my thoughts on it, jury's made a determination that Ms. Farris was responsible for her husband's death, and she was found guilty of all charges. I don't have much latitude in sentencing. The legislature has spoken, and the penalty for murder is life. The only determination I have is whether it would be with parole or without parole. I don't believe this is the case that justifies a life without parole sentence, so I'm going to sentence to life with parole, or life with the possibility of parole. I don't have any control over parole. That's up to.
And so the judge, she has no prior convictions. Hannah, what was her last name? Was it? No, Leilani Simons or Simmons. Leilani Simons, maybe. She also got life with the possibility of parole in the murder of her son, Quentin. In this case, Melody was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole.
To the parole board, under the current guidelines and sentencing structure with them, a life sentence is a minimum 30 years before you'd be considered for parole at this point. I recognize that is likely a life sentence for you. But
okay, y'all. So we have 1,000 of y'all here, and I have a new thing that I've never got to use since I did it. So we're just gonna take a moment to celebrate. Can I find it? There we go. Okay, there might be some music, so we're just gonna do this real quick and be right back. Go on ahead and hit that like button if you're enjoying this content, and we will keep it moving.
You'll have the hope and possibility of parole. As to count 4, which has a maximum of 10 years, I'm not, as I said, I wasn't going to sentence life without parole. However, I do feel like there's some additional consideration that needs to be taken as to count 4, the concealing the death of another. Presumably, the point of that was so you were found guilty of burning, discarding and burning body of Gary Wayne Farris, hindering discovery of whether the person was unlawfully killed. That definitely hindered the investigation and shows additional level of criminal intent. I'm going to sentence to 5 years consecutive on the life sentence as to count 4, concealing the death of another. The false statements, that being the lying to law enforcement about the relationship with Mr. Barton, I believe.
I thought this was interesting. So she was charged because at the time she denied having a romantic relationship with Rusty, and she was charged with that. And the judge is going to say his thoughts on this. And I just thought it was interesting.
If law enforcement didn't know about it at the time, they knew about it shortly thereafter. It was well known. Didn't take a lot of effort to make that determination. I don't really find that that's anything additional that needs additional punishment. So I'll run the 5 years concurrent as to count 5. So that would be
So she was sentenced to life plus 5.
life plus 5 with the possibility of parole. And that'll be sentenced.
Count 4.
Hmm?
Count 5 would be concurrent.
Count 5 would concurrent with count 4 and the other counts. She'd be eligible for the credit for the time she's served in the Cherokee County Jail, subject to the jailer's affidavit from the sheriff's office. To the extent that that gives her credit for her sentence, she would receive that.
They are then going to go into her ability to have contact with her family, and the judge is going to leave it up to those individuals. So the judge is going to say it's up to, so if there are family members that want to have contact with her, that they can reach out and they can have contact with her. Let me know if y'all have any general questions. This was a difficult one because, and I think that the judge went in knowing what the sentence was going to be, and I don't think he changed or edited it based on her statement. Because a lot of people were thinking with Sarah Boone's case, did the judge, was he even considering a lighter sentence? And then her statement, and he went with a stronger one. I think the judge going into sentencing knew, based on all the information he had, the pre-sentence report, like based on everything, I think he knew what sentence he was going to give. And so, wow. The testimony of Rusty, and I have the jail calls video down in the description. The testimony from Scott and Chris. I also think the testimony from her other daughter, is it Emily? So her other daughter, Emily. I also think the testimony from Chris's ex-wife, who felt something was off. And she's also the one that saw a weapon that now they can't find. Like, that's and so, because they're going to try to say that it was that, so Melody's going to say that Scott used a white weapon that he had from before, but he said he hasn't seen that in a while. So go ahead and go back to the beginning. I explained everything in the beginning. Feel free to check out any other prior coverage. I have everything linked down in the description. I think the judge did a great job. I think she was understandably upset, and I'm not a micro expressions analysis. So that's not what I do. I'm more clinical with like diagnosis, and that's what I focus on more. I don't know if Dr. G explains. This is a case that y'all might ask for Dr. G explains to talk about. He does some of that body language analysis, but this was just very, 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 very difficult. And so I appreciate you all, and I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a good one. Bye.